Thank you very much. Like I say, I'm Guy Chambers here, and I have two books published out. I'm going to be reading from my first book. This is what it is called The Theater. And I call it theater because life is like a big stage, and everybody has roles in life. But this is a story about somebody who is homeless, living on the street. I call him Daniel, and his parents too are homeless, and his friends, and his whole family's homeless, and they don't care about him. Like he's just nothing to them, and also society kind of throws him aside. And but he gets as he gets a little bit older, he realizes there's a better life out there, so he wants to get out of this cycle he's in and make a better life for himself. Like this whole book is written on a story with just straight poetry. It's all poetry all the way through it. And this book, again, like I was said before, is published through Dreamlight Publishing here in Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada. Both books are. Actually, even my wife did the artwork for it, and she did it for both books there, and she did some artwork inside there too. And so this is the whole story. It's going to start out here, just kind of a trailer here, kind of in the start of the book here. And so here it goes. Daniel, Daniel doesn't understand. In a playground, everybody's clowning around, mingling, high spirits, starlit. On the corners, children holding their mother's hand, holding tightly, laughing, smiling. In the restaurants, people eating off plates, leaving leftovers. Bellies full, peaceful. In the streets, people in the clean clothes, without a stitch out of place. Comfortable, acceptable. In the houses, families cherishing each other, secured, talking, hugging. Thunder, Daniel wonders, why not him? He doesn't understand. Honest Daniel strolling down the streets and the alleys, spearing his life of hate upon the passing walls. This is all he seeks, wandering in the past, wandering in the future. He watches his face disappear in a weather beaten theater across the street. This is what he fears, a moment of reality, a fantasy. He dreams of creeping up on the stage with his pride and love, singing his life earnings out to the audience. His words flow out like a dove in the lamplight. Box office headliner, sweeping people off the feet, raising the roof, so bittersweet. Crowds cheer, were sincere. Roses thrown from the gallery. Girls blowing kisses. Yes, girls blowing kisses. Ushers hustling, bustling, trying to keep the crowds under control. Song, song so refined, dancing so defined, so life breathing, far seeing, far reaching, the runway electrifying, audience induced, seduced. Daniel, a curtain riser, stealing the show, a show that never ending, the toast of the town. Window breaks, glass shatters across the stage floor. In a blink of an eye, the spotlight burns out. Curtain closes. His fans' audience and his applause runs down the gutter. A play. Thumb screwed, one point of view. An actor that's crowfoot, stranded barefoot in life's bitter route. A prisoner in a moment of a weak sighted dream. Oh, Daniel, you misguided child. I wish you could stay a while. There's no footlights. There's no foresight. Rolling in the dirt with the parasites. Doesn't seem right. Daniel saw himself for a moment. So that's kind of a rundown of what the whole book is all about. What I did here is, like I had the original poem, then I broke it up in acts, then I added in some other stuff in between just to stretch it out more. Plus, I get some poems about what kind of people he's are down there too, and also what kind of atmospheres and all that too, and some things about life, and did some just about him. But here's one here about one of the people down there. I call it 6 o'clock then. The October wind, leaves change color. Oh man, walking home, shuffle feet, loose suspenders, pants dragging along the sidewalks, zipper open and wet, granny knot tie, uneven button shirt, odd socks half rolled up, rough grained face, ears wrinkled down, the guys with lost boy's eyes, lumbering left hand, buffalo thoughts, even songs in his head, the words adrift, subdued, measured, sitting on the bench at the bus stop, staring at cars going by. No heart at his side to guide him, only a cane for a helping hand. Speaking into thin air, unknowing what he said. It's 6 o'clock. Nobody knows him. The wind getting much colder than before. Knew the way once before. All the tears fall the same. Okay, for my next one here, it's kind of like what the atmosphere is down in there, and this is kind of a Christmas one too. So we call it "They Say." Season greet us, snow and cold, Jack Frost in our faces. Peace on earth that we snug up to in blankets and coats. In the silent night, hoping to wake up the next day. Socks hanging, loose, cold, and damp. Brick chimneys decorated with hanging icicles looking down at us. In the middle of the night, a man with a suit comes around when we're all snugged up in our blankets, checking to see if we're all right. Out there, somebody says it's Christmas. Winter nowhere land, blue gray. It's another day paying the price. Nip fingers, ice crystals, eyes, brows. Neither here, neither there. Never understand, never to be understood. Turned out, cast out, stricken eyes, hollow bones, expressless, unreflecting. In the heavens shines a bright light, tavern neon lights, taunting, taunting us. Presents wrapped in brown paper bags under the overcoat. Angels come by out of nowhere, gives us a dime or two. God bless them. Others stroll by, children holding their parents' hands, staring at us. I remember those eyes out there. Somebody says it's Christmas. Saints in a van comes by, bearing gifts, bringing cheer to dreamless eyes. Gloves, tubes, coats, socks. Then they head us down to a hall, a decked out hall, chairs all around, warm and cozy. It's Paradise Day, makeshift meal line, food only seen and smelled once a year. Turkey, cranberries, vegetables, potatoes with gravy, warm buns and butters, and pudding. Oh, yes, puddings. But after the pudding and the belly's full, back again on the other side of the door, swept under the curb to find peace on the earth, snugged up in the silent night. out there. Somebody says it's Christmas. Okay, that was just a few poems there from my book, the theater and that. So now my next book I'm going to read from here is the one I have here is Flying Kites in the Moonlight. And that's mostly just a bunch of different type of poems I got written, having published or having published, and and, the, and I even got a section there called micro poems. I call them micro poems because they're only maybe two, three, four liners. And I like writing a lot of those poems now and all that. So I have read some before on the show before and all that. So I got that there, and so I'm gonna start out with one of my poems here called "Relax." Picture oneself having tea with a fisherman, sipping tea off the ocean breeze, sitting on a wooden stairs by the shoreline, watching a cat walking daintily across the porch railing, birds chatting with each other on the telephone lines, boats sailing passionately, the sails waving in the wind, relaxing on a current of fresh air, deep in thoughts so free from life as it is. Most of that was written to just say that there's always time to sit down and listen to the birds. Just get away from life and just sit down and relax. This next one I call nomads. Nomads, low playing drifter, concealed in the unknown spirit world, gives of ancient centuries, hidden in the mysteries, pathways. Outreach lone hand, a face of space, camouflage from the blessed native land, rises from the vegetation roots of the never ending fields, then vanishing like a lone wolf, leaving no footprints, back to the mysterious pathway of lost centuries. Okay, this next one is going to be one of my longer poems. So, this one, you put on your seatbelts. We're going for a little trip here. This is called Maiden Voyage. Maiden Voyage. Maiden spaceship onward into the endmost universe through the glittering starlight beyond the heart of the sun, craving the universal lust, gracefully probing a realization, a quest so undone, gazing out the window into the vast coldness, staring a million miles beyond what the eyes can see, like a watchman in a watchtower, idolizing the length and breadth of the boundless universe, an intruder, cherishing, preserving this historic point of time. Suddenly raising my hand, wishing to reach the sun rays, to gather the warmth around me, to maintain imperishable memories, to in, endure the love of the left, what was left on the launch pad, the smiling faces, the farewellers, believers, the critics, laughter, tears must entrench this. Keep focus, keep the faith to help me through this prolonged journey. Looking back, seeing the earth slowly vanishing, soon without a trace to the naked eye. Green lights, red lights, tell me what to do. Folding tin can of steel, observing, proceeding, deeper, deeper into space, guided by dazzling stars, and bordering the visions of the massive islands. I reach out a hand, roll a nation between my fingertips, so curiously, but closer, closer, those monstrous islands bloom like flowers, so thirsty for the knowledge of their horizon, thirsty for the love between us, the deep secrets. So tell me, who are you? How were you created? How old are you? What are we doing here? What causes the wind blow? What causes the waves to roll? If you want to, you can just whisper in my ear. I'm just dying to hear from you. I'm dying to know who you are. So tell me, where are we heading? My mind is so fascinated. What mysteries pass in front of my eyes? What was the past like? Don't keep me waiting. So please tell me, what do you predict? What will the future be like? I'm waiting for the universal secrets. I'm waiting to hear from you. So tell me, I'm just dying to hear from you. Please don't hold back. Suddenly, I take a step back, a reflection upon a ridge of a sandy dune, where a space aged boy, a free thinker, a dreamer, roaming unstable moon sand with toys, finding the strangest rocks, obscured, concealed beneath the feet of the sand, the sea of sand, sealing up the space secrets in a bag at his side, looks up to those massive, imposing islands, saying, I'm going to meet you someday. From the sandbars to sand dunes, from the earth to space, the power of the imagination lies in a future child. The space age boy is planning his next mission, making his thoughts what he delights. Might travel a short distance, might travel many nights. We are collecting what dreams were laid there in the sandhills. I savored those days. In a glimpse of a falling star, a flashback, a foretime, nostalgic past, there's a picture painted on the greenest pasture where an old man loses his way, deceived, ensnared, betrayed by the distant star. For the old man says, keep your feet to the ground, tie up your hounds, keep your hands to the south, just live what you've been told, for then you will be bold. Keep your ears to the ground, your mind will be sound, your thoughts should stay in a mold. Spaceships of fools, nobody can fly, it's a big lie. Leave the flying to the birds. Yes, the visions back there were small, all philosophies and ingrained, all ideas painted on the countryside, just a painted picture on the greenest pasture. From sandbars to sand dunes, from Earth to outer space, children always make dreams in the sun hills, hoping someday they'll become reality. I surf into the future on waves upon a foresight of man. I see a future in the palm of my hand. I see space stations filled with families living in an artificial light and unity. I see caravan spaceships flying in the dark, moving people faster than the speed of light. I see sandcastles being built on each planet, standing so significant. I see billions of miles between where the growing future shows us the universal secrets. I see the future in the palm of my hand as a grain of sand. Green lights, red lights, electrical panel tell me what to do. So above the future childs, so far beyond the distant star, day by day, moment by moment, advancing into the frontier light. Hopes lie at my feet, deeper, deeper into space, guided by snowy stars. Sometimes I wonder why I came so far. Maybe this is the ship of fools. Maybe we should leave the flying to the birds. But night by night, second by second, the star castles linger upon the lingering starlight. Nobody knows what the future holds, sharing the darkness with the islands I pass and the love between us. I wish I could feel the breeze blow on my face, to feel the warmth of the sun, feel the sand between my toes, but I must find this vision that was built on the sand dunes. From the sand hills to the future child, to the boots of the forager climbing into reality. Breathless frontier with open arms, like a nomad with a foresight. But to put the finger on the tangible, cast a light upon the shrouded inmost virgin universe, so undone. Seal up all secrets in the bag, storm away as a priceless grains of sand. Forge ahead through the glistening starlight, so graceful, so elegant, so enriched. Proceed eagerly, energy, and stimulated, like a bird of passage, newborn mankind, glorifying foreigner, electrifying a no man's land in a maiden spaceship, creating everlasting history while craving the universal lust. Thank you. One more?
Yeah, so this book is, like he said, like Leopoldo said, is about my experiences driving taxi in New York City. And there are some sort of main characters that reappear. So all the poems are in these prose blocks, and they all start with the phrase "today in the taxi." And the main characters are Kafka, Charles Mingus, the bass player, and the Lord. And the Lord has a female voice. 1/10. Today in the taxi, I brought a man from Midtown to someplace in Astoria near the airport. He asked me to take him round trip. We got to the address and he waited outside the place as someone came out and handed him a brown paper bag. The man gave the person some cash. Then we left. He asked me to drive him to the E train instead. I don't believe in saints or omens, early winds, or the pink luck of a sunset. I don't see the Lord's love with her incisions and furry ornaments. The vehicle is not just a way to get to the crime, but somehow to bless whatever the journey needs. I use my braking and steering inputs to turn inward or even to go down the uncertain road. Anti-venom. Today in the taxi, I got a fare from Parkchester to the Bronx Zoo. She finally came out of the building, put her baby in the car seat, and said, "I forgot something upstairs." Then she left the baby in the car and went back inside for 7 or 8 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I'm a safe person to leave a baby with, but she didn't know that. I was nervous. Some people live without contradiction. I remained calm, though the situation was beyond the job description. Don Bias had a serpent's tooth affixed to the octave key of his tenor saxophone. Perhaps it helped him push into the wilderness or to ward off evil. One sunny July, Kafka says he wept over the report of the trial of Marie Abraham, who, because of poverty and hunger, strangled her 9-month-old with a man's tie she used as a garter. Burnt plastic. Today in the taxi, I picked up a Wall Street type on Park Avenue near 48th Street. He was going to Montclair, New Jersey. His house was on fire, and he spent the trip on the phone, barking orders at his wife, his roofer, his contractor, his insurance company, and at me. He kept saying, "Go this way," or "Which way are you going?" He said to someone, "There are firearms and ammunition in the house." Periodically, he held back tears. It was a long 25 miles for me, and I suppose longer for him. We got there, and the house was burning. The Talmud says, nature rules over all things except the terror it inspires. Days of winter. Today in the taxi, I brought a Chinese couple, parents of a student at Columbia from Amsterdam Avenue to JFK. The girl was crying, the mother was crying. The parents sat in silence for most of the trip. They didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Chinese. I did offer them a little package of tissues. On the other hand, the sun came out and it warmed to 24 degrees. A driver should find a fixed object on the road, such as a sign or a tree. And when the car in front passes it, count 3 seconds before his own car passes it. Then add a second for each hazard, rain or darkness. The road is not unlike a little press-between vessel that the car pushes along its black bloodstream. A psalm instructs that it will be as it is said. Limbo. Today in the taxi, driving a commercial real estate type from 43rd and Madison to 57th and Park, I said, "Would you prefer to go up Madison or Park?" He said, "It doesn't matter. Either way, we're fucked." And it was true when a black pier of birds burst from the building like fulfillment. I too seek to weave a memory from foam, a black bottle opener and the blackest bottle and the flow of liquids. You cannot know it, you can see it. General Beadle Smith reported that in April 1945, when they liberated Buchenwald, he witnessed General Eisenhower go to the opposite side of the road and vomit. From a distance, I saw Patton bend over, holding his head with one hand and his abdomen with the other. I too became sick. When the oncoming headlights are too bright, it is said you should look to the side at the lines on the road. You would stop yourself from being blinded and stop yourself to imagine the road ahead, unstrung, and the rubber against it. Rights. Today in the taxi, I brought a woman from Morningside Avenue to 38th and 8th. She back here, I have to rehearse. She sang up and she sang down. The alto flutter and the tree stump cut from a hill. A writer said, "We call ourselves not only what we are, but also what we seek to be." Driving, it must be noted, is about 10% physical and 90% mental. The wheel obeys the commands of the rose brain and its taught rituals. E minor sonata. Today in the taxi driving north on 31st Street in Astoria, a bus went through a red light and nearly killed me and my passenger. Hit with a heavy object, some carry-on with wet fur is misshapen, red, part raccoon, and washed in road light. If ever there was wanting, you have found it. If something was lost, let it be discovered. Dusks vanish, please swallow the continent whole. Earlier, my passengers were making out like they were the last people on Earth. Simone Weil said, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." Uncomfortable. Today in the taxi, bringing a guy from the Upper East Side to Penn Station. We were on Park Avenue and he rolled down the window and spit just as a food delivery guy on a bicycle was riding by. The bike messenger looked incredulous. The passenger said, "My bad," an expression I loathe. The bike messenger looked like, "Is this actually happening to me?" The guy said, "None of it got on you." The bike messenger looked like, "What the fuck?" The guy said, "My bad, I didn't see you." Once an elderly woman remembered Kafka, who had rented a room from her parents in February 1924. The woman, Christine Geyer, said that Kafka, already sick with tuberculosis, was spitting phlegm off the balcony. Didn't he see the children playing below him in the arbor? Empty. Today in the taxi, I got a couple on Lafayette Street going to the Home Depot on West 23rd Street. The woman was about 8 months pregnant. At some point, the man started sobbing. We're in debt every month. We're so close to the edge. I can't do this anymore. The woman said, I'll return it. I had no idea you were this upset. I've never seen you this upset before. The man was hysterically crying. We're in debt every month, and it doesn't seem to bother you. You don't care. When we were on 6th Avenue, the woman asked me to pull over, and they got out. Poor lovers, one volcano pouring lava from one mouth into one's other till one unravels. Harlem River Drive. Tonight in the taxi, it felt like the path of names. The city night is like the breaking of vessels. I counted to 4 and marked the distances. There seemed to be infinite green lights reflected in the puddles. We live in a time whose motor hums the noises of collapse. Sparks scattered in order to lift the street grid up. The little shifter was set on drive. The pale lighted interior and 3 maps sent me across boroughs. A monster is made only of nerves. The driver is nothing without the 3,300 pounds of metal slicing the air. Pink gloves. Tonight in the taxi, I drove 4 women from a bachelorette party, complete with their tiaras and feathers, to another bar. Already happy, they pushed the bride-to-be forward, and she asked me how I thought she looked. I was too taken aback to answer much of anything. She was liquid, prehistoric, and my little body burned. I thought of the Lord throwing handfuls of sequins at the party as if to say, there is no other life but this one. Verse. Today in the taxi, I picked up a woman with a little girl, maybe 5 or 6, on West 91st Street going to West 68th Street. When they got in, I said, she should wear a seatbelt, please. And she said, seatbelts aren't safe for kids her age. I'm a safe driver, but in a crash, whatever isn't strapped down will continue flying forward at whatever speed the car was traveling. I imagined fears of the apocalypse, yellow ants, and bacteria coming from the ice caps. All will suffer. Who knows what danger we may have encountered had they worn seatbelts. Once it was claimed that the prophets can command things not in accord with the law. An old rabbi called it a commandment which is fulfilled by means of a transgression. They opened the door and went on their way. Which seed? Today in the taxi, my passenger was crying into her phone. She just had a miscarriage. Who was she talking to? Her mother, perhaps. She hoped there was an invisible hand that had some purpose in her tragedy. I pictured the Lord and her shelf of jars and vapors, her amino acids and carbons, fit together with one black wheel and one white wheel. Every Sabbath, the rabbi would remove the slip of paper with her name on it from the golem's mouth, and it would become lifeless, nothing but a thimbleful of little clay cells. Thank you.
I don't know if people remember, but I had I have a series called Asylum, where I try to describe my experience as a result of a manic bipolar disorder. And the reason for the series is for people to understand what it feels like to be in such a state and how you get through, how you get through it. So, and you tend to find that there are things that you do that are, that you realize at the moment you're doing them that they are not correct or they are not appropriate, but you have no control over yourself. So this is one of those incidents. Insulting a friend. When the outpatient treatment had just begun and the mania still lurked just under the skin, a friend, well beloved of 40 years or more, invited me over my condition to explore. It wasn't spring, but the mania that brought forth a monologue carried on in Malayalam, their language. Both parties surprised, one unabashed, the other awed. The memory returned of a manic grandfather, speak Malayalam in a pseudo-majestic manner, understand his grief in seeing himself thus, yet with no way his own self to recover. No ceremony, no weight, demand viance. Since when was this the mind's way? If the break did unleash these fiends, will the cure exorcise them away? To the living room the party moved, released from confinement, their son's dog gamboled all over me. My response, undignified, was to sit on the floor and be thoroughly licked. My friend, normal, dignified, somewhat staid, said, the dog needs to know who's boss, the alpha male. Irritated by his tone, I called him a jackass. There is a history that drives our interactions. I know him as self assured and confident in all his statements. Envy of this trait, suppressed, escaped the usual restraint. Unruffled, he called me a genius. On this note of mutual agreement, I left. It was only after a hiatus that our friendship regained comfort. Unasked, he has provided an anchor, a shelter for a mind if storm tossed, a regular sympathetic advisor, a recipient of confidences shared.
How incredible. This is a work in progress that I'm releasing publicly tonight. Thank you for being ears to it. Heart to art. Verbosity is a trite noun for a wordsmith's hammer pen crash on paper anvil's one-dimensional surface, forged of cerebral flames, gravity crushing ink splats. These recent years have comprised strands of low, onerous adjectives, hypervigilant, skeptical, divisive, apart, tired. We are just so tired. Pining to live weightless, we look towards space, free from definitive describers graphing loss on the news feed, days as segmented rooms of fear houses, aging anxiety in fetid cellars by the beats. Softly, my love, go softly to the rise, descend to the forest's mossy births, sidle the many oceans' impermanent shores, steady the grass blade between your lips. One simple note makes a whistle. Art as verb, move as verb, trust as verb, love as verb. Be the wind, winding, the breeze, breezing on sunny Williams Reed. Move the octaves between your hips, shimmy and quake. Yes, wiggle and wake up, look up, rise up. We are not yet done here. Dance as verb, touch as verb, wise as verb, live as verb. Guided by Anahata's green realm, the unstruck sound resounds. Heart as verb, heartening is a higher adjective for the new simple arc of the stringer bead. Collective cohesion starts with one, then again one, then another. In baby steps, we forgot how to take while we were slaying adjectives with our tarnished lances. Neurodiversion is the new normal. Take what makes your perception unique, express as you must, all you squeeze through the press, living your life as the verb you are.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, I'm working on a collection of poems having to do with my refugee experience. I was a refugee from the Nazis back in October of 1939. And I have been, it's very, very hard thinking back on those days, especially when you were a very young child. And so this is what I'm working on. And I have a poem here, which I'd like to read to you. It's called, It's in My Bones, Tarampapa. I love to waltz with my mama. I should say I was born in Vienna. I left Vienna in 1939. Mother said the Blue Danube was a muddy river. Mud hides bones. There's a snapshot of me, age 2, sitting on a white limed ledge, my father beside me to his waist in water. That was when the bone breakers came. We treaded brown current, fearing to trample unmarrowed bones. The river churns through me like new wine from Grinsing, laps at apple green memories in 3/4 time. Boils double helix eddies, uncoiling Strauss at 5 in the afternoon with swells of Habsburg Coffeehouse Gemütlichkeit. Who were those neighbors, friends who sprinkled us with water in the yard when we were kids, but learned nothing about showers? Who applauded Uncle Martin playing Faust on stage as he sold his soul for Marguerite, but also clapped when Martin rolled to dodge impromptu kicks and pummels as he shoveled Nazi horseshit off the street? Who greeted us Grüß Gott each day, but squawked good riddance Jew as gangsters wheeled our things away? Returning to my Lannerstrasse home after the war, I tried the bell. An old man shuffled to the door. Do you know about the folks who lived here in those former years? I asked him. Oh, them, he grinned sardonically, his green eyes peering to my core. They croaked decades ago. Ain't none of them alive no more.
Thanks. The first one I'm going to read 2 short ones, is from my chapbook, held together with tape and glue. Notice. All has been harrowed and harrowing from tears over spilling levees. Waiting to understand, to hum, you hunt for the methods. Patterns are easier to see from the sky. Those beans you found, you planted and believed magical. No catastrophe interrupts. Notice good things, the ocean, how bees visit all blooms, not only those sown by hands. Wait for the sweet heft of jasmine. It happens to you. Freshness comes, a cornucopia of experience. This other one is after Wordsworth, and it's called On My Couch I Am. On my couch I am, not a wanderer, but sometimes lonely, at times a dancer, at times a cloud, a float, a flutter, responsive to winds, soft or strong, and the sight of yellow flowers, stars, trees, bays, veils, all things celestial, earthly, and inward. I see them still in this glass, daffodils, blurry because I gaze from so close, also crisp because they bloom continuously in my heart, which renders lonelinesses into solitudes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is something I wrote just a couple of weeks ago for an Eagle House class, and it's just an alter ego poem, but it's not your typical alter ego. It's just this is not somebody you would aspire to. It's actually my paternal grandfather. He was not a bad person, just had a lot of problems. And he was from a place called East Prussia, which was once Poland had it until about the late 18th century. Then Prussia got it, so it was called. So he was kind of a Germanic personality, and he kind of tended to give commands a lot. So it's just where he's coming from. So I call this Rudolph Revisited. It was a diminutive Rudolph insomnia waking me up at 3 a.m. with his New York accent, hectoring in the dark. What's wrong with you? I had turned in at 1 a.m. in the upstairs swelter of an Ohio July, after the sweaty hunting and pecking on a baby blue Olivetti in a vain attempt to finish a term paper on Joyce's Ulysses. By that time, I had only read half of the Rent-A-Character Leopold Bloom's monologuing of his employer's myopic whimsy. The next day, I arose with a headache at 6 a.m. as the egg yellow sun burned through the window, watering my eyes. An hour later, I began the drive up and down the Cincinnati hills towards the university, somehow tolerating the feel-good idiocy of Three Dog Night blasting joy to the world from the car radio. Yet I was still puzzled how the same person who wrote this asinine anthem also wrote The Pusher a few years before. Next up was Elton emoting Bernie's lyrics about a character rocketing to Mars, where he remembered he had forgotten to ask his wife if she wanted anything from the grocery store on the way home. How I wish the DJ would cue up the Beatles song, I'm Only Sleeping, since black-hearted jackdaws from a German neighborhood in Brooklyn were crying out a cacophony in my head. Meanwhile, Rudolph pointed out my ineptitudes in a voice that clackety-clacked like an approaching L train. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I had a wonderful time earlier this week. Well, I guess that was yesterday and the day before at my old school collecting love poems from preschoolers. I take dictation, and I read them. Richard Brautigan's Your Catfish Friend, which is a remarkable poem, and Langston Hughes' poem, I loved my friend, he went away from me. There's nothing more to say. The poem ends soft as it began. I loved my friend. And I had, it was such a pleasure collecting them. I was wondering, may I share one or two with you?
Of course.
Yes, please.
And this one I put on, this one is really after the Hughes. This is Mom and Dad. I love my mom and dad. I play with them. That's the end. It's ending happily. I love my mom and dad.
Oh, wow.
That was by one of the 3-year-olds,
Mhm.
which I thought was pretty darned good.
I
Um,
now have hope for
Yep.
for humanity.
Yep.
Right.
Here's I love you, mom and dad. I wish you were a catfish. I'd be a catfish too. We would sleep all day in the mud in the pond. I would give you my heart.
Wow.
Gosh,
Wow.
Wow.
Right on. I like that one.
you know,